The soft blue glow of monitoring screens filled the United Earth Defense Force's Deep Space Listening Station. Located in the heart of Antarctica, the facility stood as humanity's ears to the cosmos. Tom Rogers sat at his usual console, sipping coffee from his worn thermos, expecting another quiet night shift. But this night would be different. At exactly 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time, every detection system in the facility lit up like a Christmas tree. Tom nearly spilled his coffee as he scrambled to make sense of the readings. "Director Wilson," he called out, his voice echoing through the quiet facility. "You need to see this." The facility director, an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes, hurried over. He leaned forward, squinting at the displays. "What are we looking at, Tom?" "Sir, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. The signal, it's structured, repeating, and it's coming from the Kuiper Belt." Tom's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up more detailed analyses. "This isn't random space noise. This is a message." Wilson's eyes widened. After 30 years in deep space monitoring, he knew this was the moment they had all been waiting for. "Get me the UEDF command. Now." Within hours, the facility was buzzing with activity. The best code breakers and signal analysts from around the world were patched in via secure channels. The message, they discovered, was being broadcast on multiple frequencies, using mathematical sequences that could only be artificial in origin. In the main control room, Dr. Lisa Brown, the lead xenolinguistics expert, worked tirelessly with her team. After 18 straight hours of analysis, her hand shook as she held her coffee cup. "It's definitely a distress call," she announced to the room. "The mathematical patterns, they're universal. Someone out there is asking for help." The news traveled up the chain of command rapidly. In Washington, D.C., the UEDF High Command convened an emergency meeting. Admiral Robert Hayes stood before the assembled military and civilian leaders, his expression grave. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "at 3:47 hours yesterday, we received what we can now confirm is an alien distress signal. There is a fleet of ships stranded in our solar system's Kuiper Belt. Based on the signal strength and preliminary analysis, we're looking at thousands of vessels." A murmur ran through the room. One of the civilian officials raised his hand. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Hayes nodded at the valid concern. "The signals include detailed technical data. Our scientists have confirmed they're experiencing a critical drive system failure. These ships are running on emergency power, and their situation is deteriorating. They chose to reveal themselves to us because they had no other choice." The room erupted in discussion. Earth had prepared for first contact for decades, but no one had expected it to happen like this. They had imagined diplomatic missions or formal greetings, not a desperate cry for help from their own solar system's backyard. Admiral Hayes raised his hand for silence. "We've already begun preparations. The UES Resilience, our most advanced deep space vessel, is being readied for launch. Captain Walker and his crew are the best we have." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of activity. At the Kennedy Space Center, ground crews worked around the clock to prepare the Resilience. The massive ship, nearly a kilometer long, represented the peak of human space technology. Its nuclear-powered engines and advanced radiation shielding made it uniquely suited for deep space rescue operations. In the ship's briefing room, Captain Walker addressed his crew. "We're about to make history," he said, his voice steady and calm. "But more importantly, we're about to answer a call for help. Whatever we find out there, whatever challenges we face, remember this. Today, humanity shows the universe who we are." As the Resilience lifted off from Earth, its massive engines lighting up the night sky, billions watched from below. News channels worldwide broadcast the historic launch. For the first time in human history, mankind was reaching out not to explore, but to save those who had called for help. The mission to save the stranded alien fleet had begun. Humanity's first steps into a larger galaxy would not be marked by war or fear, but by an act of compassion. And unknown to them all, this response to a simple distress call would change the course of human history forever. The UES Resilience cut through the darkness of space, its nuclear engines pushing it deeper into the Kuiper Belt. On the bridge, Captain Walker watched as the first visual images of the alien fleet appeared on the main screen. The sight took his breath away. Thousands of ships stretched across space like a sea of stars. Their designs were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Sleek vessels with crystalline structures that seemed to glow from within. But even from a distance, the crew could see that something was wrong. Many ships were dark, running on minimal power. "Multiple contacts ahead," reported Officer Pete Jones from his sensor station. "I'm counting over 3,000 vessels. Their power signatures are extremely weak." Walker nodded. "Take us in slowly. Open all communication channels and begin broadcasting our first contact package." The first contact package was simple: mathematical sequences, basic scientific constants, and peaceful greetings in multiple Earth languages. They had prepared for this moment for decades, but now that it was here, everyone on the bridge held their breath. The response came almost immediately. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge, showing a tall, silver-skinned being. Its features were elegant and almost metallic, with eyes that seemed to shimmer like starlight. "Greetings, Earth vessel," the alien spoke, its words automatically translated by their computers. "I am Admiral Thex of the Stellar Concordat. We need your help." Walker stepped forward. "I'm Captain Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. Tell us what you need." The alien admiral's image flickered slightly. "Our quantum drive systems have failed. The radiation from the nearby pulsar. It's affecting our technology in ways we didn't expect. We have thousands of civilian refugees aboard these ships, and our shields are failing." Dr. Miller, who had been quietly analyzing data at her station, spoke up. "Captain, their quantum technology appears to be incredibly advanced, but their radiation shielding is surprisingly basic." The alien admiral turned toward her voice. "Yes, our worlds have weak magnetic fields. We never needed to develop strong radiation protection. We thought our quantum shields would be enough. But they're not holding up against the pulsar's radiation." Walker finished. He looked at his crew, then back at the alien. "Admiral, we might be able to help. Humanity has been dealing with radiation shielding since our atomic age." The alien's expression showed surprise. "At least, that's how the humans interpreted it. Your species, we had classified you as a developing civilization. We didn't think that primitives like us could help." Engineer Mark Thompson spoke up from his station, a slight smile on his face. "Sometimes the old ways work best." Walker shot Thompson a warning look, but Admiral Thex actually made a sound that might have been laughter. "Perhaps we have much to learn from each other." Over the next few hours, the Resilience moved closer to the alien fleet. The humans were amazed by the advanced technology they saw: quantum computers, faster-than-light communication systems, and artificial gravity that made Earth's technology look like children's toys. But when it came to radiation protection, the aliens were baffled by Earth's primitive but effective solutions. They watched in fascination as Thompson explained the basics of lead shielding, water barriers, and boron-based materials. "You mean you use actual physical materials for radiation protection?" one of the alien engineers asked, clearly astonished. "Not energy fields. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable," Thompson replied, showing them the designs for Earth's radiation shelters. As the day progressed, more human ships arrived from Earth, bringing supplies and engineering teams. The sight of the small, sturdy human vessels among the graceful alien ships was strange, but somehow fitting. Captain Walker stood with Admiral Thex, watching their crews begin to work together. "We'll need to modify our shielding designs for your ships," he said, "but we'll find a way." The alien admiral looked at him with those strange, shimmering eyes. "You know, Captain, when we sent that distress call, we never imagined that the help we needed would come from Earth. We have much to learn about not judging a species by its technological age." Walker smiled. "Well, Admiral, sometimes being primitive has its advantages. Now let's figure out how to save your people." The real work was about to begin, and neither humans nor aliens knew exactly how it would turn out. But as both species worked together, something new was being born, a partnership that would change the galaxy forever. The main engineering bay of the UES Resilience had never been so crowded. Human engineers stood shoulder to shoulder with alien technicians, all gathered around a holographic display of their current crisis. The image showed the failing quantum shields of the refugee fleet, with angry red indicators marking critical points of radiation exposure. Engineer Mark Thompson pointed at the display. "The problem is worse than we thought. Their quantum shields are failing faster than predicted." He turned to Dr. Miller, who was running calculations on her tablet. "How long do we really have?" Dr. Miller looked up, her face grim. "At the current rate of degradation, most ships will lose shield protection within 3 weeks. The civilian vessels carrying families will be the first to go." The alien engineer, First Tech Coordinator Reed, stepped forward. His silver skin reflected the blue light of the hologram. "Our people have never faced radiation levels this intense. Our homeworlds all had strong magnetic fields that protected us naturally. We never needed to develop better shielding." Thompson walked over to a storage unit and pulled out what looked like an old piece of metal. The aliens watched curiously as he held up the heavy lid plate. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. This might look primitive to you, but it saved countless lives during Earth's nuclear age." Reed studied the lead plate with his shimmering eyes. "But to shield our entire fleet with physical materials, the weight alone would be enormous. Our ships aren't designed to handle such mass." "Then we adapt," Captain Walker said, entering the engineering bay. Admiral Thex followed close behind him. "We modify the designs, use what works from both our technologies." Dr. Miller suddenly straightened up, her eyes bright with an idea. "What if we combine approaches? Use your quantum field generators to help distribute the weight of our radiation shielding materials across the ship's structure." The aliens in the room looked at each other, their expressions showing something close to surprise. Reed spoke first. That might actually work. We never considered using quantum fields for physical load-bearing." Thompson was already moving to a workstation, his fingers flying over the controls. "We could create a hybrid system. Your quantum tech handling the structural support, while good old-fashioned lead, water, and boron handle the radiation." Admiral Thex stepped closer to the hologram, studying the proposed modifications. "How quickly could we implement such a solution?" "That's the real challenge," Walker said. "We need to retrofit thousands of ships, and we need to do it before their current shields fail completely. One ship at a time would take months." The room fell silent as the enormity of the task sank in. They had a solution, but the scale of implementation seemed impossible. Then a young human engineer named Jack stepped forward. "What if we work in parallel? The Resilience isn't the only human ship here now. We could set up multiple construction points throughout the fleet." Thompson nodded enthusiastically. "We could teach your crews the basics of radiation shielding installation. Your quantum technology makes communication instant across the fleet. We could coordinate the entire operation in real time." Dr. Miller was already calculating. "If we can get enough human ships here with materials, and if your crews can learn quickly enough." She looked up. "We might just make it, but it will be close." Admiral Thex turned to Captain Walker. "Your people would commit so many resources to helping us." Walker's response was firm. "Admiral, when we hear a call for help, we answer it. That's what humans do. The real question is, are your people ready to learn our primitive ways?" The alien admiral's face showed what might have been a smile. "Captain, I believe we are ready to learn many things from humans." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Messages were sent to Earth requesting every available ship and all the radiation shielding materials they could transport. The alien fleet began reorganizing itself into construction zones, preparing for the massive operation ahead. As Walker watched the preparations unfold, he couldn't help but feel a strange mix of pride and concern. They had found a solution, but implementing it would push both species to their limits. The real test was just beginning, and they would need every bit of human ingenuity and alien technology working together to succeed. "Well," Thompson said, studying the installation plans, "at least it's not boring anymore." Walker smiled. In the face of an impossible challenge, human humor remained unchanged. They had a long way to go, but for the first time since arriving, he felt truly confident they could save these people. Sometimes the biggest challenges brought out the best in both species. The space around the alien fleet had transformed into a massive construction site. Human ships moved between the larger alien vessels like worker bees, delivering materials and coordinating teams. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just a week ago. Inside one of the largest refugee ships, engineer Mark Thompson wiped sweat from his forehead as he demonstrated the installation of radiation shields to a group of alien technicians. The artificial gravity was set slightly higher than Earth normal, making the already heavy lid plates even more challenging to handle. "Remember," he said, holding up a section of shielding, "the key is to layer them correctly. Lead, then water cells, then the boron mesh. Your quantum field generators will help distribute the weight, but the installation order matters." The alien technicians watched intently, their silver skin reflecting the work lights. One of them, named First Tech Reed, stepped forward to help Thompson lift the next plate. "It's remarkable," Reed said, his translator conveying genuine amazement. "We spent centuries developing quantum technology, yet never considered using simple elements like this for protection." Thompson smiled as they secured the plate. "Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have worked for generations. Now, let's see your team try it." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Human engineers taught alien crews the basics of radiation protection, while alien technicians helped modify their ship systems to accommodate the new shielding. The cooperation between species was unprecedented. In the command center, Dr. Miller reviewed the latest progress reports with Captain Walker and Admiral Thex. Holographic displays showed the status of each ship in the fleet, with green indicators slowly replacing red ones as more vessels were upgraded. "We've completed modifications on 20% of the fleet," Dr. Miller reported. "The first batch of ships are showing excellent radiation protection levels, even better than we hoped." Admiral Thex studied the data. "The combination of your physical shields and our quantum field generators is proving more effective than either technology alone. We never imagined such a merger was possible." Walker nodded, but his expression remained concerned. "We're making good progress, but time is still against us. How are the material supplies holding up?" "Earth is sending everything they can," Dr. Miller replied. "Every nuclear facility, every radiation research center, they're all contributing, but getting it all here through normal space." She left the sentence unfinished. Just then, Jack, the young engineer who had suggested parallel construction, burst into the command center. "Captain, Admiral, I think we found a way to speed things up." All eyes turned to him as he pulled up a new diagram on the main display. "We've been working with the alien engineers on their cargo transporters. If we modify them using our radiation shielding principles, we can safely transport larger quantities of materials through their quantum corridors." The alien admiral's eyes widened. "Use radiation shielding on the transport systems themselves?" "We never. Of course. Our quantum transport networks were always vulnerable to radiation interference. That's why we couldn't use them here." Thompson, who had just returned from his training session, stepped forward to study the diagram. "The kid's right. We protect the transport corridors the same way we're protecting the ships. We could quadruple our supply delivery rate." The command center erupted into activity. Human and alien technicians began immediate work on modifying the transport systems. Within hours, the first test was ready. Everyone held their breath as they activated the modified transporter. A massive shipment of lead shielding, enough for an entire ship, materialized perfectly in the cargo bay. The aliens broke into their musical language, their excitement needing no translation. "Now that's what I call a delivery service," Thompson said, grinning. Walker turned to Admiral Thex. "With this, we might actually have a chance to shield every ship before the radiation becomes critical." The alien admiral placed a hand on Walker's shoulder, a gesture he had learned from watching the humans. "Captain, your species continues to amaze us. You've taken our most advanced technology and improved it using materials we considered obsolete." Dr. Miller looked up from her calculations, smiling. "It's not about how advanced the technology is, Admiral. It's about using the right tool for the job." As the successful test results spread through the fleet, a new energy filled both human and alien crews. What had seemed like an impossible task now felt within reach. The race against time continued, but now they had a real chance of winning it. The next phase of the operation was about to begin, and this time, they were ready for it. The massive hangar bay of the alien command ship buzzed with activity. Human engineers in radiation suits worked alongside tall, silver-skinned alien technicians, installing the newly designed shielding panels. Time was running out, and everyone knew it. Captain Walker stood at the observation deck with Admiral Thex, watching the work below. The alien leader's metallic skin reflected the harsh work lights as they observed their crews working together. "Your people work with remarkable speed," Admiral Thex said, his translator converting his musical language into English. "We would never have thought to use such basic materials for protection." Walker smiled. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. How are the first ships holding up?" "The vessels we upgraded 3 days ago report radiation levels have dropped by 80%. Your primitive lead water shields work better than our quantum barriers ever did." There was a note of wonder in the Admiral's translated voice. Below them, Engineer Mark Thompson directed a team installing cooling systems. The human-designed radiation shields were heavy, and the alien ships needed additional support to handle the extra weight. It was a challenge they hadn't expected, but one they were overcoming together. "Team 7, we need more coolant lines on the port side." Mark's voice echoed through the hangar. Both human and alien workers responded immediately, moving with practiced coordination. After 2 weeks of working together, they had developed an efficient rhythm. Dr. Anna Miller hurried onto the observation deck, her tablet displaying rapidly changing numbers. "Captain, Admiral, we have a problem," she said, her face tight with concern. "The pulsar's radiation levels are increasing faster than predicted. We have maybe 3 days before it reaches critical levels, not the week we thought we had." Admiral Thex's silver skin paled to an almost white shade. "We still have over 300 ships to upgrade. At our current pace, we need at least 5 days." Walker studied the figures on Dr. Miller's tablet. "Then we work faster. Mark," he called down to the hangar, "get everyone together. We need to reorganize." Within an hour, the entire operation had shifted into high gear. Human engineers taught alien crews how to install the basic components, while they focused on the more complex systems. The work continued around the clock, with teams rotating in shifts. "Move those cooling units into position," Mark shouted, directing a mixed group of humans and aliens. "Be careful with those connections. They have to hold under extreme stress." In the makeshift command center, Dr. Miller worked with alien scientists to monitor the pulsar's activity. The massive star's radiation output kept climbing, making their race against time even more desperate. "If these readings are correct," one of the alien scientists said, "the radiation will reach lethal levels in 64 hours. Walker paced the command center, looking at the status displays. They had upgraded another 50 ships in the past day, but it wasn't enough. The remaining vessels still held thousands of civilian families. "What if we doubled up?" he suggested suddenly. The upgraded ships could extend their new shields to protect another vessel alongside them. Admiral Thex considered this. It would strain the shield generators, but it might work for a short time, long enough to complete the upgrades to the remaining ships. They put the plan into action immediately. The upgraded vessels moved into position, pairing with unprotected ships. It wasn't a perfect solution. The shared shields would only provide partial protection, but it would buy them precious time. As the hours ticked by, the hangar bay became a scene of incredible cooperation. Humans taught aliens their outdated techniques for radiation protection, while the aliens shared their advanced tools to speed up the installation process. Neither species could have succeeded alone, but together they were accomplishing the impossible. Walker watched from his position in the command center as another ship's upgrades were completed. The display showed 347 vessels protected, with 213 remaining. They were making progress, but the pulsar's increasing radiation meant their deadline was getting closer by the minute. "Captain," called out one of the sensor operators, "there's something wrong with the pulsar readings. They're showing unusual patterns." Walker and Admiral Thex shared a concerned look. They both knew that in space rescue operations, unusual patterns usually meant trouble. As they moved to check the readings, alarms began to sound throughout the fleet. The race against time had just become even more desperate. Red warning lights flashed across every screen in the command center. The pulsar's unexpected behavior sent waves of panic through both human and alien crews. Captain Walker stared at the main display, his face illuminated by the pulsing emergency lights. "Report," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. Dr. Miller's fingers flew across her console. "The pulsar is going through an unexpected burst cycle. Radiation levels are spiking to nearly 5 times what we predicted. It's like nothing in our models." Admiral Thex moved to her station, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. "How long until the radiation reaches the fleet?" 20 minutes, maybe less," she replied, her voice tight with tension. "The outer ships will be hit first." Walker looked at the fleet display. They had managed to protect most of the ships, but nearly 50 vessels still had incomplete shielding. Each one carried thousands of civilian refugees. "We need to evacuate those ships," Admiral Thex said, but Walker was already shaking his head. "There's no time. Even with every available transport, we couldn't move that many people." Walker studied the tactical display, his mind racing. Then his eyes fixed on the UES Resilience and the other human ships. "Get me ship-wide communication," he ordered. When the channel opened, he took a deep breath. "All human vessels, this is Captain Walker. We have a radiation burst incoming. Our ships have the strongest shields. I want all human vessels to move to defensive positions around the unprotected alien ships. We're going to act as shields." Admiral Thex's eyes widened. "Captain, your ships will take severe damage. You could lose them all." "Better to lose ships than lives," Walker replied firmly. He opened the channel again. "All crews, this is not a drill. Move to radiation protocols and prepare for extreme conditions. Engineering teams, divert all power to shields." The response was immediate. Across the fleet, human ships began to move. The UES Resilience, along with its sister ships, positioned themselves strategically around the most vulnerable alien vessels. On the bridge of each ship, crews rushed to their emergency stations. "Radiation wave approaching," Dr. Miller called out. "Impact in 5 minutes." Engineer Mark Thompson's voice crackled over the comm from the Resilience's engine room. "Captain, I've modified our shield geometry. We can extend coverage by another 12%, but the strain on our systems will be massive." "Do it," Walker ordered. "Every bit helps." Admiral Thex watched in amazement as the human ships formed a protective barrier around his people's vulnerable vessels. It was a strategy that went against all tactical logic, risking the strongest ships to protect the weakest. 2 minutes to impact. Inside the human ships, crews worked frantically to reinforce their shields. The Resilience's engines whined as they pushed more power into the protection systems. Warning alerts blared as systems were pushed far beyond their designed limits. 1 minute. Walker gripped his command chair. All ships, brace for impact. Engineering, give me everything you've got. The radiation wave hit like a physical force. The human ships shuddered under the impact. Inside the Resilience, panels sparked and systems screamed in protest. The shield generators glowed white-hot as they strained to hold back the deadly radiation. Hull temperature rising. Mark shouted over the comm. Shield generators are at 130% capacity. Hold position. Walker ordered. We just need to give the civilian ships time. On the tactical display, they watched as the radiation levels spiked to terrifying heights. The human ship's shields glowed visibly in space, creating a protective umbrella over the vulnerable alien vessels behind them. Minutes stretched like hours as the burst continued. Systems failed across the human fleet, but not a single ship broke formation. The crews worked with desperate determination, rerouting power and fighting to maintain their protective positions. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Dr. Miller's voice broke through the tension. Radiation levels are dropping. The burst is passing. As the emergency faded, the extent of their sacrifice became clear. Every human ship had suffered significant damage. The Resilience's hull was scorched black in places, and several of its systems were burned out completely. But when they checked the protected alien ships behind them, not a single life had been lost. Admiral Thex stood in stunned silence for a moment before speaking. In all our centuries of space travel, we have never seen such an act of selfless courage. He turned to Walker. Your people didn't just save lives today, Captain. You've shown us something about humanity that we will never forget. Walker managed a tired smile. It's what anyone would have done. No, Admiral Thex replied softly. It's what humans would do, and that makes all the difference. 1 month after the crisis, the Great Hall of the Stellar Concordat Central Station buzzed with excitement. Representatives from over 50 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for an historic moment. The massive space station, positioned at the heart of known space, had never seen such a diverse assembly. Captain Walker stood with his crew near the center of the hall. The UES Resilience, now fully repaired, orbited the station alongside ships from across the galaxy. The burn marks on its hull had been left untouched, a proud reminder of their sacrifice. Admiral Thex approached the central podium, his silver skin gleaming under the ceremonial lights. Behind him, the Grand Council of the Stellar Concordat took their seats. These were the leaders of the most advanced civilizations in known space. We are gathered here today, Admiral Thex began, his words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously, to recognize not just an act of heroism, but a moment that changed our understanding of what it means to be advanced. The Admiral gestured toward the human delegation. When we first detected Earth's early space signals, we classified humans as a developing species. We thought their technology primitive, their methods outdated. We could not have been more wrong. Screens around the hall displayed images from the rescue. Human ships positioning themselves as shields. Engineers working side by side with alien crews. The innovative radiation shields that had saved millions of lives. Humanity showed us that true advancement isn't measured by the complexity of our technology, Admiral Thex continued. It's measured by how we use what we have to help others. Their primitive solutions saved our people when our advanced technology could not. Dr. Miller, standing beside Walker, squeezed her tablet tightly. The new radiation shielding designs she had developed were already being implemented across the Concordat's fleets, combining human ingenuity with alien quantum technology. Therefore, Admiral Thex announced, the Grand Council has made an unprecedented decision. Earth will be offered full membership in the Stellar Concordat, with all rights and privileges thereof. Moreover, we propose the establishment of the Earth Concordat Scientific Exchange Program, to ensure that we never again overlook the value of different approaches to technology and problem-solving. The hall erupted in applause. Species that had never before been in the same room together united in their appreciation of humanity's contribution. Walker stepped forward to accept the formal invitation. As he did, engineer Mark Thompson leaned over to Dr. Miller and whispered, "Not bad for a bunch of primitives with lid shields, huh?" The ceremony continued with the signing of various treaties and agreements, but perhaps more important were the informal connections being made throughout the hall. Human engineers discussed shield modifications with alien technicians. Scientists from a dozen worlds crowded around Dr. Miller, eager to learn about Earth's basic but effective approaches to radiation protection. Near the end of the ceremony, a young alien child approached Walker. She belonged to one of the refugee families they had saved. Without saying a word, she handed him a small crystal, a traditional symbol of life debt in her culture. Walker knelt down to accept it, understanding the gravity of the gesture. "The child speaks for all of us," Admiral Thex said softly. "You didn't just save our ships, Captain. You showed us a better way forward. Together." As the ceremony concluded, the Great Hall's dome opened to reveal the star-filled space beyond. The UES Resilience's silhouette was visible against the starfield, its battle-scarred hull now a symbol of unity rather than conflict. The next day, as Walker prepared the Resilience for its journey back to Earth, he received messages from across the galaxy. Species that had never bothered to contact Earth before were now eager to establish diplomatic relations. The ship's database was flooded with requests for cultural exchange and technical cooperation. "Looks like we're going to be busy," he told his crew during their final briefing. "The Concordat wants us to help establish the first joint human-alien space academy. Apparently, they think we have something to teach them." "And what would that be, Captain?" asked the junior officer. Walker smiled, looking out at the stars. "That sometimes the simplest solutions require the most courage, and that true strength lies not in the power of our technology, but in our willingness to use it to help others." As the Resilience set course for Earth, it carried more than just its crew and new alien technologies. It carried the promise of a future where humanity's place among the stars was secured not through force or advanced technology, but through compassion, ingenuity, and the simple willingness to help those in need.